Bring Me the CEO Horizon, Blue Dot Fever Denial, and Bougiefest 2026. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by Brute Force Research and brought to you by No Disc, helping music technology and finance companies navigate the music industry, and partnered with Digital Music News. It's May 18th, 2026. I'm Lars Murray. It's Monday, where we talk about what happened over the weekend and what is on tap for this week. Over the weekend, I spent some time catching up with the goings-on over at the Warner Music Group from the week before last. Way back on Thursday the 7th, Deadline picked up on something that the rest of the trades really didn't catch. That Warner had done a massive deal with Paramount to develop biopics based on X number of their artists, including Frank Sinatra, Cher, the Eagles, David Bowie, Phil Collins, Fleetwood Mac, Madonna, Dua Lipa, Coldplay, Charlie XCX, Joni Mitchell, Cardi B, Led Zeppelin, Bruno Mars, yada, yada, yada. As if Bohemian Rhapsody alone was not enough to prove the potential of music biopics to generate film revenue and drive all kinds of activity, including streaming, around their subjects, the Michael Jackson movie seems to have lit a fire under the butts of Warner and Paramount, which, after all, still is, for now, the home of MTV Films. Remember that thing, MTV? What was the M for? No specific projects are announced yet, but another perhaps forgotten name surfaced in the discussion as well. Former Epic Records head Amanda Ghost, who will be co-leading the team developing the concepts. Also on the Warner tip from a couple of weeks back, somehow CEO Robert Kyncl's recent remarks on AI slipped under the radar the Friday before last at the Amplify Music Investment Summit. Kyncl sounded the alarm that the music industry risks moving too slowly in AI and repeating its errors of the turn of the 21st century when it tried to kill rather than co-opt Napster and ended up setting itself back a good dozen years. It's an interesting analogy on the face of it. Embracing new tech is generally a more winning strategy than trying to ignore it or kill it. On the other hand, the true value of AI to the various stakeholders, including artists, songwriters, labels, and publishers, is still a little less clear. And more importantly, it requires a behavioral change rather than just replacing existing behavior, like the Napster revolution did when it replaced a good technology with a good enough technology doing the same thing and making it free. It's a lot less clear how consumers are going to want to interact with AI music platforms and AI music generation, and whether and at what scale that's going to happen. AI is not going to disrupt Taylor Swift or jam bands or any artist with rabid fans eager to interact with them intimately, and even if it does ultimately achieve that goal, it's going to take a while, so the risk in doing the deals too early may be as great as the risk in doing them too late. The source is also interesting given that Kyncl, before he was the Warner guy, was the YouTube guy, and while it's somewhat arguable that the industry left money and opportunity on the table by not embracing YouTube fast enough, the one major that did beat everybody to the YouTube deal, that would be Warner, didn't ultimately end up a whole lot better off than the two major labels who did not. Those labels, UMG and Sony, even went so far as to build a super layer on top of YouTube, that would be Vivo, to extract more revenue from the platform than it would purely through a direct deal with YouTube. So before making any rash moves, it's a good idea to consider the source of the comments. In addition to, as always when parsing statements of major label heads or any CEO for that matter, to understand what their horizon is, i.e., the length of their contract and the timetable of their vision. If the head has a short contract timetable and or is nearing retirement, chances are the deals they make are going to reflect that outlook. It doesn't appear, though, that any of the major label heads are close to retirement or under imminent threat of defenestration, so you should expect them to take a longish view. But if you ever want to predict what a major will do, bring me the horizon, or the CEO horizon. It's also important to note that as of today, Kyncl is the guy with his neck stuck farthest out among the heads of the majors, having done a deal with Suno, something the other two are playing hardball on. This story will continue to develop, and we'll be staying on top of it. Live streaming hit a high water mark during COVID. After all, it was the only game in town if you wanted to see a show. That wave subsequently subsided as artists hit the road. That pig passed through the python of the music industry in 22 through 25. Meanwhile, live streaming continues to become a bigger and more mainstream business. Last month, Coachella continued to project its relevance and garner huge audiences with its live streams. And now Apple is placing some bets on streaming. Along with Lady Gaga, it's now going heavy into EDM. Apple's going to live stream from Electric Daisy this year, building on the audience model successfully pioneered by the likes of Fred Again, Boiler Room, and of course Twitch and YouTube Live. It's not clear to me whether Apple Music indexes heavily on EDM, although it's not far-fetched to think so, given that Apple is pretty good at figuring out luxury-driven businesses. The other thing it will do for Apple, though, is cement further in the mainstream that the model of DJ sets, rather than singers and artists, is a popular streaming activity. Yep, olds, it turns out that kids are quite happy to watch a single camera, or maybe three, pointed at a DJ in a room, as long as the beats are banging enough. Oh yeah, speaking of that live pig passing through the python and the perhaps related and perhaps actually real phenomenon of Blue Dot Fever, that is, empty seats and canceled tours, over at Billboard, Ariel King gathered up a panel of experts to try and resolve the question, have tickets become too expensive? Of course, over the last few weeks, Post Malone, Kid Cudi, Meghan Trainor, and others have canceled shows, and even Stagecoach didn't sell out. And with last week's inflation reports showing an acceleration back up to 3.8%, thanks Biden, it's looking like consumer wallets are going to be increasingly squeezed in the near future. Anybody who's had to fill their tank lately will know that. Ariel did the rounds and surveyed the experts, including Live Nation's Joe Berchtold. He dismissed the premise with the statistic that cancellation rates have only been between something like 1% and 2% in the past year. Of course, that doesn't mean that the inflation that started after the pandemic hadn't already pushed too far. And oh, by the way, it doesn't count all of those new tours that got canceled. I mean, what do you expect? To have Live Nation say ticket prices like these are out of control? And ultimately, it's not the touring industry experts who are going to make that call, it's the consumers. For the full rundown, though, of what the experts are saying, it's over at Billboard. Looking at the week ahead, coming off of a busy week that included Music Biz and the ACM Awards last night, it's a little bit quieter now, at least for a couple of weeks, until Indie Week, which we are also now calling Music Investment Week / New York Music Month, washes ashore in Manhattan in June. But there are a few things going on this week. Over in the UK, they'll be handing out the Ivor Novello Awards on Thursday. Down where the winter is approaching in South Africa, the Africa Rising Music Conference happens this weekend. Sounds like a fun future junket. And the conference that manages to out-bougie Coachella, Tech Bro Destination Bottle Rock, happens this weekend. Let's get to our birthdays this week. Birthdays this week include sync legend, booming baritone Jonathan Palmer, Cindy James, a friend of the pod, and Virgin Music high Mucky Muck, my Brooklyn gym major and crack publicist Brendan Gilmartin, and the man who introduced me to classic Jamaican ska, indie label head, scourge of the Tories, sometime godfather Del Bartle. Happy birthday, everybody. And that's another Monday. Support for Unlimited Supply is provided by you, our listeners. If you want to join the few, the proud, the elite supporters of Unlimited Supply and get your Unlimited Supply Merit Badge trucker hat as a symbol of your sophistication, there's a link in the show notes and on our website. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods. I live for your praise and encouragement, but it really helps if you share that praise as a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, and tell a friend or three. And now we are on Substack if that floats your boat. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.